Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, Boris Johnson says Britons won't need to show a COVID vaccine passport to go to the pub, but admits you might need one to go on holiday. Now, to me, this all depends as to who is demanding that there is a vaccination passport, if you will, or proof of vaccination. Of course, we've got requirements for proof of vaccinations for other diseases, like yellow fever, I believe, for entering some countries, and that is from the country you're trying to enter, putting border restrictions on their own borders, which is fair enough. I think we can all agree that a country is entitled to put restrictions on its own borders as they see fit, as in to stop people from coming in, but not to stop people leaving. And that is where that might be the sticky point. So as I say, it really depends on who is enforcing this. If it is Boris saying you're not allowed to leave unless you've had this vaccination, then that is certainly unacceptable. If it is particular countries saying we require you adhere to these particular rules when entering our country, then that seems fair enough. So by drawing the distinction between saying if you're going abroad compared to if you're staying domestic, then it seems to be he's going down an acceptable route. Because the other way of saying this is that Boris Johnson would say, we don't care if you're vaccinated or not, do what you want, but if you want to go somewhere else, they might have a problem, so check with the country you're travelling to. Make sense? Fair enough. Good job. The only issue there is they wish to expand the idea of bubbles. That is, not just for your local support bubbles of friends and family, but towards other countries. So as long as the countries have the same ideas of vaccination requirements or track and trace, then you would be able to travel freely, as in not having a quarantine. As Spain has been saying, we don't need to have a quarantine as long as we've got something else in place, like what we're suggesting here. Okay, that, again, makes sense. And the nice thing about it, if he decides to go the route that I've stated, which is quite a big if, but, you know, let's give the benefit of the doubt just for now, the ideal scenario, if you will, is that if there are any detrimental effects of the vaccinations, that will come out, not before too long, of course. And what would that mean? Well, if Britain decides that it doesn't wish to go authoritarian and have to vaccinate everybody, whereas other countries decide that they will forcefully inject unknown chemicals into their populace, then that country will suffer sooner rather than later, whereas the UK will not, meaning UK citizens travelling abroad will be in high demand. So would they still keep those restrictions in place? No, they wouldn't. Even Cuba seems to be opening up a bit now. And, of course, with pressure put on China to do with North Korea, then North Korea is also squirming as well. So as is the way. And this is the way of the world, and freedom is obviously the way in which people are able to do the most things, have the most success, if you will, follow what is meaningful to them, and so that end result is what countries want. And so they all play a balancing act between allowing that maximum level of freedom so that everybody's happy and they have maximum prosperity, but then also creating a job for themselves so they don't really have to do much and can have more power so they can take a greater proportion for themselves. Obviously, if they didn't intervene at all, there would be more to go around for everybody, but then they wouldn't get as much as if they intervened at least a little bit. So that is the balancing act that all the governments around the world are trying to ascertain. How much power or control can you muster or take from your populace without the end result meaning that you've hardly ended up with anything? And bear in mind with Fidel Castro in Cuba again, when he died, I believe he had about 750 million US dollars. He was nearly a billionaire while his country was suffering. So, unfortunately, as a tyrannical dictator, as a despot, you can go quite a long way in taking power and still being able to reap the rewards from it. Of course, he wouldn't wish to spend that time in his own country. As I say, what you see in North Korea as well is that they send their aristocratic offspring to Europe normally, like Switzerland, I believe, is where Kim Jong-un was educated. Not a good student, but that's to be expected, because they know that their own country is failing. So yeah, they can take from their own country, but they still need to rely on other countries in order to have any standing whatsoever. So what does that mean for us? Well, the more freedom we permit, the better we'll do, not only internally, but also on the world stage. And the more freedom and opportunities we'll have globally as well. Is that the route they want to go down? No, it's basically, you don't have to be the best, just as long as you're not the worst. And then there's not really anywhere else your citizens are going to go, so you can strangle them at least a little bit. And that seems to be the route that Boris Johnson is actually going down, as in the support bubbles route. But don't think that, vaccination passports are a stupid idea and we're definitely not doing that, because he's only saying, I don't think we'll do it. In fact, as he says here, that looking in the future, what we hope to have is such a high proportion of the population vaccinated that when you couple that with rapid testing, lateral flow testing, you really start to get the kind of answers that you're talking about. So I think it's in the context of having vaccinated a lot of the population, as we're already doing, and we'll do a lot more in the next few months, that the rapid test approach will start, I think, to come into its own. So it's mainly testing, but, as I say, it's only him saying, I don't think that's what we'll be doing. So, during a visit to a community vaccination centre in Orpington, southeast London, Prime Minister said, I think inevitably there will be great interest in ideas like you can show that you've had a vaccination against COVID in the way you sometimes have to show you've had a vaccination against yellow fever or other diseases in order to travel somewhere. I think what is going to be very much in the mix down the road. I think that is going to happen. What I don't think we will have in this country is, as it were, vaccination passports to allow you to go to, say, the pub or something like that. All politicians are trained this way, use weasel words so that you can't be called out for lying later on. And that's what he's doing there. So I don't think it'll happen, but it might be happening. But, from the City of London and the big offices that are going on there, they are looking for vaccinations to happen before people go back into the office. In which case they would need to know who's been vaccinated as well. Bit of a concern there. And then when it comes down to like event organisers and contractors, similar thing, that they want them to be vaccinated for the sake of public health, of course. And again, that's where you're going to find the problem there. And you can look back through the back catalogue if you wish to pick out particular examples like Pimlico, who are leading the charge when it comes to violating human rights of not having things injected into you if you do not want them injected into you. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think he's basically just dipping his toe in the water in order to try and enact more control and say, yeah, well, the other countries don't want you travelling to them unless you're vaccinated. So we're going to make it easier for you by working with these half dozen groups, as they say here, in order to show that you are vaccinated. For your sake, it's easier for you. And then to say, well, okay, if you're doing things and you're a public-facing role, then, of course, you should be vaccinated, and you can't win a tribunal of unfair dismissal if you're not vaccinated, because it's a public-facing role, in which case, yes, you do need to be. And then, of course, go down to just the minority left to say, well, you're the only ones who aren't, and we need a few more for herd immunity. So, yeah, you also need to be vaccinated in order to leave your home. Either way, let me know down below, given the pushback to this level as well. There's only so much we're willing to take. And as always, until next time, have a good one.